We're back to give you the legal edge. It's June and backyard pools are opening and trampolines are back in working order. But what happens if those items attract uninvited guests and they end up injured on your property? Attorney Bryan Waldman has more on how a homeowner or renter could be on the hook for that.
But their liability or responsibility is always dependent on the status of the person who's on the land. In other words, they have a duty of care that is highest for people that are there for business purposes, like if you invite someone on your property to make a repair or a delivery. The next highest standard, or the middle standard, would be a social guest, inviting a friend over. And then the lowest duty is to a trespasser, which makes sense. They're not supposed to be on your land. They're not invited. And generally, someone who possesses land is not going to be responsible for harm or an injury caused to a trespasser, but there are some exceptions.
Let's talk about those. What are they?
Right. The exceptions are different whether a person is a child or an adult. In the case of an adult, there really has to be egregious conduct on the part of the person that possesses the land. They have to essentially engage in what the law calls willful and wanton misconduct. So I mean, think about it, willful, you have to intend that someone be injured or harmed, or a situation where maybe you know that there's a trespasser there and you take some affirmative action that actually results in harm or an injury to that person.
What about children? Because, you know, the trampoline next door can be very tempting, and, you know, what's the harm in a couple of bounces and maybe they don't know I'm there?
Yeah, so that is exactly the type of thing, Siobhan, and in the law, what that's referred to as an attractive nuisance. And it's the type of thing that's attractive to children, like a swimming pool or a trampoline. You know that they're going to be tempted. And because of their age or their youth, they're maybe not going to appreciate the risk of harm or risk of injury. And so there is a heightened duty in that type of case to a trespasser who's a child. And the law in Michigan essentially says that you can be responsible in those situations if you know you have something that is likely to entice children on your property, and they're not going to appreciate the risk of harm due to their age. Like so many things in the law, Siobhan, the best way oftentimes to protect yourself against liability or legal responsibility is to use common sense, take reasonable actions.
And Bryan says an example of taking reasonable action if you have a backyard swimming pool, for example, would be to have a fence with a locked gate around the pool.